What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a Sweet 16 prediction video. And this tournament has lived up to the billing. It has been a crazy tournament. It started on from the first four. We saw Pittsburgh go on to the round of 32 and ended up falling to Xavier. We saw a plethora of upsets. We saw a 16 seed beat a 1 seed. Fairleigh Dickinson took down Purdue. This was only the second time that it's happened in this tournament history. The last time it happened was UMBC beat Virginia. Another Cinderella story you see there is Princeton, the 15 seed. What a story that was. They took down Arizona. A lot of people picked Arizona to even make it either to the Elite Eight or even win it all and win the national championship. Princeton continued their run. They ended up beating 7 seed Missouri pretty handily as well, so as the South is really taking shape as well. We saw Furman take down Virginia in the first round. That was only 13 over 4. We didn't see any 12 over 5s, which is definitely surprising to me. And then we also have a team like Florida Atlantic, the number 9 seed. What a crazy game that was in their first round against Memphis, and they ended up beating Fairleigh Dickinson. So the 16 seed is out of the tournament. A really great story for Fairleigh Dickinson. That was the team that didn't even win their conference championship. Merrimack won their conference championship, but with the rules in place, they was on their 4th year of going from, I believe it was the D2 level, and now they're at the FB, the Division One level. So a really good story for Fairleigh Dickinson. Their coach is now going to be headed to Iona. So some other crazy stories as well. We saw another 1 seed go down in the round of 32. The defending national champions, Kansas, lost to Arkansas. Now that was the game that I had a little bit of doubts of. Arkansas hasn't really shown that their talent, throughout the season. That's been a team that's been up and down, but they have shown that they are here, and you got to give credit to Nick Smith and all those guys that really stepped up. Eric Musselman has been very consistent these past couple of years. This is the 3rd straight year we've seen Arkansas make it to the Sweet 16. And then we also saw a great story like Michigan State, a 7 seed. They made it all the way. Creighton upset Baylor. So this has just been a wild tournament. A lot of all of the brackets are pretty much busted, especially on ESPN. I know that they put out a graphic that there are 0 perfect brackets left. There was a couple of them left after the Furman upset and then the Princeton upset. But after Fairleigh Dickinson, I don't think that anybody picked Fairleigh Dickinson to beat Purdue. But my bracket is looking pretty all right. I still have 3 of my 4 Final Four teams. I sadly don't have Duke anymore. Duke lost to Tennessee in the second round. I myself didn't really believe in Tennessee, especially with the Sakai Ziegler injury, but they are proving me wrong. One of the best defensive teams in the country, and I think their path is pretty set up for them. They get Florida Atlantic coming up, and then they'll get the winner of Michigan State and Kansas State. So it's probably one of the easier paths. I think that Alabama also has the easy path as well, though that San Diego State could give them problems based on how their defense is. But other than that, I still have my national champion. I have Texas still remaining there. They'll play Xavier. I still have UConn, the 4th seed. They're going to be taking on Arkansas. And then also have Alabama. Alabama and Texas was my last national championship. That's whenever Wade and I did our March Madness predictions video, and I figured I would update this since we're in the Sweet 16. My bracket's not totally busted, so I don't really need this second chance, but I'm going to do it anyways and try and update because, like I mentioned, I don't have Duke anymore, so I will have probably a new one. We'll see if things will change based on how these teams are. So we're a little bit into this video, so let's go ahead and get things started looking at the South region. If you're curious, when does the Sweet 16 start? It starts on March 23rd, goes all the way to March 24th. So this whole entire weekend we'll have not only the Sweet 16, but also the Elite Eight. And that's what I love about the first weekend. We get 4 straight days of basketball, and it's definitely crushing. We have to deal with Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday without basketball, but we'll get the Sweet 16 action underway. We'll have the Thursday games. We'll also have the Friday games as well. And then the Elite Eight will be the Saturday and Sunday games. And the Final Four will be April 1st. we'll have two games on that day, and then the national championship, which will be Monday night on April 3rd. So all roads are leading up to Houston, Texas. Let's go on now to the South region, where we have number 1 Alabama versus number 5 seeded San Diego State. Now, I do have this same matchup happening in my bracket. I pretty much the South was pretty even to me in my bracket. I did have Alabama continuing on, but I did have West Virginia. I picked them, but ended up losing to Maryland in the first round. But Alabama has really cruised in their first matchup. They cruised against the 16 seed, really had no problem there. And in the second round against Maryland, really dominated that. We saw Brandon Miller start to get healthy. He had 0 points in the first game, and he's really showing as well. So Alabama is starting to look like a legitimate national championship team, and their path is really, I would say, out of all the 1 seeds that are still available, probably the easiest path that they have. But San Diego State, let's go back to their path. They beat College of Charleston in the first round. In the second round, absolutely dominated 13 seed Furman. So I do think that San Diego State, they're going to have to lock down Alabama if they want to stay in this matchup. But I think that Alabama is too hot in this one. There's really nothing that's going to change my pick. I did have Alabama making it all the way to the national championship. I just don't really see anybody stopping them in their way in the South. I think that the best team that has a chance is San Diego State. And if they get past them, then I think that they might as well just book their flights to Houston, because I don't really see Creighton or Princeton really defeating them. So I have Alabama continuing their run going on to the Elite Eight. So now they will face the winner of 6 seed Creighton and 15 seed Princeton. Creighton has also been a good story in the tournament. They were able to pass their test in the first round of the tournament, beating NC State. And then they upset number 3 seed Baylor. And then number 15 seed, the Cinderella story of the tournament has been Princeton. Not only did they beat Arizona, but they also beat Missouri. So this has really been a phenomenal story to watch. Princeton wasn't even favored to win the Ivy League. Yale was, but Princeton ended up beating Yale in their conference tournament final. So I think that this is going to be a team that's not scared of anybody. I do think that Creighton is the better team in this one, but as we know in March, the better team doesn't always win. But here I am still going to go all chalk here based on the seedings. I do think that Creighton, they have the shooting abilities. I wouldn't be surprised if Princeton pulls off the upset. I almost did. I kind of analyzed this matchup before doing this video, but I still love Creighton in this one. I think that they really showed me a lot in that Baylor game. They also had a tough task against NC State. NC State is no slouch, but I do think that Creighton will move on to the Elite Eight. So we'll go ahead and finish out the South region. We still have all chalk here. Number 1 seed Alabama, 6 seed Creighton, and this is pretty easy. I think that Alabama is by far the best team in the South region. So I think that the Crimson Tide will move on and have a little bit of home court advantage. I think that if Alabama makes it to the Final Four, they're not only that, we see the Alabama fans, invested in their football program, which has become a dynasty. But I think that if Alabama makes the Final Four, you're going to see a lot of Crimson showing up in Houston, not too far of a drive from Tuscaloosa, or it's a quick flight as well. So now we'll go on down to the East. We'll find out who Alabama plays in the Final Four. We have a 9 and a 4 seed. I think that the East is where the parity has really been. We saw Purdue go down. We saw Florida Atlantic step up and rise to the occasion. Then we saw Michigan State knock off Marquette. So this first one is Florida Atlantic. Let's go through their route. They beat Memphis in the first round, and then they beat 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. It was very close, but Florida Atlantic was able to hit some clutch shots and some clutch free throws as well. In Tennessee, they have been one of the surprises as well. I know that they're a 4 seed, but some people didn't really believe in this team because of the Kai Ziegler injury, but they really passed their test in the first round against Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns played the Volunteers close, and they ended up beating Duke, a red-hot Duke team. So this is going to be a great matchup, but I'm done doubting Tennessee anymore. I think that they get it done. I think that Santiago Vescovi is starting to show his right, and then they also have the size as well to match up against Florida Atlantic. I think that Florida Atlantic will play Tennessee close. I don't see any of these games really being any blowouts. If you were to pick one, probably the Alabama and San Diego State game, because I just don't think that San Diego State has the offense to keep up with them. But I will keep going with Tennessee. And then we have 3 seed Kansas State, 7 seed Michigan State. Kansas State beat Montana State in the first round and then beat 6 seed Kentucky in the second round. Then Michigan State beat USC in the first round, and then also upset number 2 seed Marquette. And this is a tough matchup for me. I do have a lot of confidence in both of these teams. Michigan State definitely has the guard play to challenge that. I thought that they would have the best shot of knocking off Marquette early, and they ultimately did. This is very tough for me, but in the end, I'm going to go with Kansas State. I know I'm still going to go all chalk here. I do think that this is the likely upset in the East region. I don't know if Florida Atlantic really has. I just think that Tennessee's defense is going to be too much for them. But I think that Kansas State really showed me a lot. They've been a little bit inconsistent down the stretch, but they beat a really good Kentucky team. Were able to lock down Oscar Tshiebwe down the stretch. But I think the play of Keontae Johnson is really shining this team. We're also seeing Powell as well. The 2 guard play has just been tremendous, and I think that Kansas State is going to move on. And then 4 seed Tennessee, 3 seed Kansas State. Wade had this from the start, and I'm going to agree with him. I think that Kansas State has what it takes to become a Final Four team. And I think they get to Houston as well. If they can get through that Michigan State game, this is going to be no easy task for Kansas State. These are 2 tough matchups, whether they get Florida Atlantic or Tennessee. And also Michigan State is also a tough team as well. Hard to pick against Tom Izzo in March, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with Kansas State moving on to the Final Four. So now let's go on now to the Midwest region. We have 1 seed Houston, 5 seed Miami. Houston has passed their test, beat 16 seed, and then they also beat Auburn and Birmingham. And then Miami has been a real good tournament for them. They beat Drake. That was a popular upset pick, and they beat a really good Indiana team. Houston has been dealing with some injuries. Marcus Sasser has been a little bit banged up. And we also saw Jamal Shed also banged up as well. But I'm going to stay consistent as well. In my bracket, I had Houston making it to Elite Eight. I do think that this Miami team is starting to play consistent basketball, but I think that Houston is just going to get the job done. I just think that they have been a consistent program. I just think that Houston's going to get it. And then 3 seed Xavier, 2 seed Texas. It's been tough roads for both of these teams. Xavier beat 14 seed Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State was up by as many as 17 in that game. And then Xavier really flexed their muscle in their second game of the tournament as well. So Texas as well, they've had a tough path. They beat Colgate in the first round pretty handily. And in the second round, they beat a really good Penn State team. But I'm going to stay with it. Texas, Houston, and Texas. And this is going to be easy for me. I'm going to stick with what my bracket has. I really feel like this is going to be really the game of the tournament here between Houston and Texas. This has a lot of implications. 2 Texas teams getting to play in Houston. I think that Texas, they just really been playing hot. They won the Big 12 championship, and they've really shown me beating a really good Penn State team and beating a pesky Colgate team. Colgate is always playing somebody close, but Texas really flexed their muscle in that matchup. The West, this is going to be a fun 2 matchups here between 8 seed Arkansas and 4 seed UConn. Like I mentioned, Arkansas getting that big upset against number 1 seed Kansas, and then they got their first round matchup win over Illinois. UConn, they beat Iona in the first round, and then they also continued their march into the Sweet 16, beating number 5 seed St. Mary's. This is a really tough matchup for me. I think that Arkansas, this is where I would see that Arkansas really shakes up the West bracket, but I'm going to stay consistent to what my bracket is. I don't really see anything changing. I think that this UConn team has really shown me much. I think it's definitely tough. I think that Arkansas, I think that this is a team that I'm going to be rooting for to make it all the way into the Final Four. I think they have the talent to. I just think that UConn is playing hot, has been playing hot at the right time. They've been playing consistent down the stretch, and it's going to be hard to stop them. So I think that UConn gets the job done. And the next one, we have 3 seed Gonzaga and 2 seed UCLA. UCLA has really breezed through their bracket. Gonzaga got tested by TCU in the second round, but they were able to pass their test. And I'm going to stay consistent as well. I have Gonzaga. I think that the injuries are going to slowly creep up on UCLA. I know that UCLA has looked better overall than Gonzaga in this tournament, but I think that Gonzaga, coming off of a really proven game where they were down early, and they had to fight all the way back. Drew Timmy had a phenomenal game, had 28 points. So I think there's just something about this Gonzaga team that's really giving me some high hopes so that they can make a deep run. But ultimately, I have their run ending. I think that UConn, this has been a team that I've really been high on all season. I just don't really see their run ending. But I do think that we could have a potential Arkansas and Gonzaga matchup, but I'm going to go with UConn. So the Final Four, we have only one seed Alabama, we have a 2 seed Texas, and then we have a 3 seed Kansas State and a 4 seed UConn. So pretty much every seeding, I think that is how it's going to be. Ultimately, how it shapes up. There's only going to be one seed. Maybe we get another with Houston, but there's going to be some parity. We're going to have some new teams. We're obviously going to have a new national champion with Kansas being booted out. Alabama, Kansas State. I think that we talked about this. We saw this in the Sugar Bowl. I'm going to keep Alabama rolling on, then Texas and UConn. I'm going to have the 2 seed Texas moving on as well. And then Alabama, Texas. I'm going to continue picking them. Texas, I think that the Longhorns, they have the team, they have the experience in this one. I think this would be an amazing game between Alabama and Texas. We saw a great game on the football field. I think we could see it again on the hardwood. So that's going to be it for the Sweet 16 predictions. Let me know in the comments who you have making it to the Final Four. We also put out a short and let us know down there as well. So hope y'all enjoy the rest of the tournament, and we will be back here once it gets closer on to the Final Four. Give us a little preview as well. So that is it. Enjoy the rest of your day.